Welcome back to TV5 News at 9. It is time now for our favorite segment, Education Matters. We are here with Dr. Craig Douglas. Thank you so much for calling in, Dr. Douglas.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about what school will look like next fall, but after-school activities are a huge part of that experience. So talk to us a little bit about what changes are coming to high school sports, Dr. Douglas.
Well, we're looking at trends and trying to get a sense of what the experts are looking at as far as options. We've talked before about the need to be flexible, that the possibility will exist that school may not be a 5-day-a-week experience for students. Well, for sports, the Michigan High School Athletic Association has been really front and center on this right from the get-go. I would have you reflect back to the basketball season where girls and boys tournament actions were suspended during the tournaments as the COVID virus pandemic broke. And since that time, the suspension of those contests, experts have been looking at options of the best way to bring back sports in the coming year. So recently I heard on the Huge Show, which is on Sports Talk, a representative from the Michigan High School Athletic Association, and they've actually categorized sports into levels of risk, and they're looking at phasing in routines. So for athletes now, they're preparing for the coming school year. Certainly conditioning is important, and this would be at home, and the guidance on what kind of conditioning exercises and routines would come from their coaches and their athletic director. You know, things like running and sprinting and weights and things like that at home. But now schools will start to open up and limited practice sessions will resume, and it will depend again on the risk factor involved for the sport. So some sports are lower risk, like, for example, cross country, where it's purely running, golf, tennis. Other sports are lower risk, where much higher risk are those that involve contact, like soccer, football especially. So the way these team settings will resume are still to be determined. It will be based upon what health and governmental officials can and say should be done. As parents, I think you should anticipate communications from the school. Perhaps there'll be some equipment and rule adaptations. The High School Athletic Association is looking very carefully, for example, at what colleges and pros are doing as far as rule changes. One example I would offer is in football, teams are limited as far as where they can stand along the sideline. That may change, and actually the team might be able to line up further down the field to allow for more social distancing. I hope this kind of makes sense in terms of how this could generalize into other sports. The open air competitions that are outside will probably be a little bit easier to manage. Those competitions indoors, like I said, volleyball, basketball, certainly wrestling, it's going to really be a challenge. There could be crowd limitations on size and seating. There could even be health screenings and other new practices for contact tracing as the pandemic evolves. So a lot's under consideration right now. I hate to sound like I'm wishy-washy, but I really think that everything is understudy right now. It's almost like a real-time reality TV show in many ways in terms of getting data, looking at best practices, and seeing what makes the most sense.
Well, that's, interesting because kids are asking these questions now. My daughter is a volleyball player and a swimmer. My son's a hockey player, football and basketball, and they want to know, even for the summer, how can they still get involved and still keep up with their activities?
Well, one thing I've heard, Colette, that may be helpful for your swimmer is apparently pools are relatively safe. The most unsafe part of pools, I'm told, are like the handrails and the things out of the water. Mm-hmm. But once the swimmer's in the water, they're relatively safe from the virus, that's good news in many ways. But those other considerations, anything indoors, close quarters, look for social distancing and some restrictions. One of the things, back to football for a second, they're looking at perhaps a shield that will affix to the helmet. Now, there are costs and safety implications there, but there could be some radical changes to some of the things that we know as far as athletics.
Okay, so we need to stay in touch with the school district. That is utmost important. Okay, thank you, Dr. Douglas.
There isn't another spike. That's another big part.
That's it, yes. Okay. Thank you again for all your tips. We appreciate it, Dr. Douglas.
Take care and stay well.
You as well, Dr. Douglas. If you'd like any more information at all about today's topic, please head on over to the Hot Links page on WNEM.com.